The way we see ourselves is not just a reflection in the mirror. It is a collection of stories we tell ourselves every single day. These stories shape our beliefs, our confidence, and ultimately the way we show up in the world. Some of these stories are empowering, reminding us of our strength and resilience, but many of them are limiting, whispering doubts and fears that keep us playing small. The truth is, we are not just the characters in these stories. We are the authors. And if we want to change how we see ourselves, we have to start by changing the narrative. From a young age, we begin collecting messages from the world around us, our families, our teachers, our friends, and even the culture we grow up in. We internalize these messages, turning them into beliefs about who we are and what we are capable of. Maybe you were told you were too quiet, too loud, too much, or not enough. Maybe you struggled in school and began to believe you weren't smart enough. Or perhaps you made a mistake once, and that mistake became the defining story you carried about yourself. These narratives, often formed in childhood, follow us into adulthood, influencing how we see ourselves and what we believe is possible. But here's the thing. Just because we have believed something for a long time does not mean it is true. Our inner dialogue, the stories we replay in our minds, are not facts. They are interpretations. They are conclusions we have drawn based on experiences, many of which were shaped by circumstances beyond our control. And yet we live as though these stories are absolute truth, rarely stopping to question them. If we want to grow, if we want to see ourselves differently, we have to be willing to challenge these narratives. We have to ask, is this story serving me? Is it lifting me up? Or is it keeping me stuck? One of the most dangerous stories we tell ourselves is the one that says, I am not enough. This story is sneaky. It doesn't announce itself loudly. It creeps in through small moments when we hesitate to speak up in a meeting, when we downplay our accomplishments, when we let fear stop us from taking risks. It is a story that convinces us to settle, to shrink, to stay within the lines that feel safe. And yet, when we look at the world around us, the people who inspire us, the ones who are fully alive, they are not the ones who believed in their own limitations. They are the ones who rewrote their stories, who chose to see themselves through the lens of possibility rather than fear. Changing the way we see ourselves starts with awareness. We must learn to catch the negative narratives before they take root. When you hear that inner voice saying, you're not good enough, pause. Where did that belief come from? Who told you that? And more importantly, is it true? Because the moment you realize that this is just a story and not reality, you gain the power to rewrite it. And rewriting your story doesn't mean ignoring challenges or pretending everything is easy. It means choosing a perspective that allows you to grow, to believe in yourself, even in the face of setbacks. One of the most powerful ways to shift your story is through self-compassion. Instead of replaying the story of your failures, begin telling the story of your resilience. Instead of focusing on what you lack, remind yourself of what you have overcome. Self-compassion is not about excusing mistakes. It's about recognizing that mistakes do not define you. You are more than a single moment, a single flaw, a single failure. Your story is still being written and you hold the pen. Imagine if, instead of telling yourself the same old story of fear and limitation, you started telling yourself a story of courage, of worthiness, of possibility. Imagine if every morning you reminded yourself that you are capable, that you are growing, that you are enough exactly as you are. How would that change the way you show up? How would that change the way you pursue your dreams? The truth is, the way we see ourselves determines the way we live our lives. And when we change the story, we change everything. So here's the invitation. Take a deep breath and start paying attention to the stories you tell yourself. If they are holding you back, rewrite them. Choose new words, new perspectives, new beliefs that empower rather than diminish you. The story of who you are is still unfolding, and you have the power to make it one of courage, resilience, and self-love. The question is, what kind of story will you choose to tell? There is a voice inside each of us that whispers doubts, points out our flaws, and magnifies our failures. This voice, often referred to as the inner critic, can be relentless. It tells us we're not smart enough, not talented enough, not worthy enough. It reminds us of every mistake we've ever made and predicts our failure before we even begin. And the worst part, we believe it. We mistake its harsh words for truth, allowing it to shape the way we see ourselves and what we believe we're capable of. But here's the good news. You are not your inner critic. That voice is not the truth. It is just a habit. And like any habit, it can be broken. The inner critic is born from a mix of past experiences, societal expectations, and deep-seated fears. Maybe someone told you as a child that you weren't good enough and you internalized it. Maybe you failed once, and instead of seeing it as a lesson, you turned it into proof that you should never try again. Or maybe you've spent so much time comparing yourself to others that you've convinced yourself you'll never measure up. Over time, these thoughts become ingrained. They become the automatic responses we give ourselves whenever we face a challenge, an opportunity, or even just a moment of vulnerability. But here's the truth. Your inner critic is a liar. It doesn't see you fully. It only sees the parts that reinforce old fears and insecurities. It's like a distorted mirror, one that only reflects your flaws while ignoring your strengths. And if we let it, this voice will keep us small. It will convince us to stay quiet when we want to speak up, to walk away from opportunities because we fear we're not ready, to settle for less than we deserve because we think we're not worthy of more. But we were not made to live under the weight of self-doubt. We were made to grow, to stretch, to step into the fullness of who we are meant to be. So how do we break free? The first step is awareness. We cannot change what we do not recognize. Start paying attention to your self-talk. When that voice of doubt creeps in, pause. Notice what it's saying. Whose voice does it sound like? A teacher from childhood, a past relationship, society's unrealistic standards? Many times, the inner critic is simply a voice we've absorbed over the years, and recognizing that can begin to loosen its grip. You're not bound to old narratives. You have the power to rewrite them. Next, challenge the critic. When that voice tells you, you're not good enough, ask yourself, is that really true? Can I prove this thought wrong? More often than not, we will find that the inner critic is basing its conclusions on fear rather than reality. If you've told yourself you're not capable, look back at moments where you were. If you've told yourself you'll fail, remind yourself of times you succeeded despite the odds. The goal is not to pretend self-doubt doesn't exist, but rather to stop giving it the final say. Another powerful way to silence the critic is to replace it with self-compassion. Imagine if you spoke to yourself the way you would speak to a dear friend. If a friend came to you filled with doubt, would you confirm their worst fears? Would you say, yeah, you're probably going to fail, better not even try? Of course not. You would remind them of their strengths, of how much they've grown, of all the reasons why they are worthy. Why then do we not extend the same kindness to ourselves? Your inner voice should be your greatest encourager, not your worst enemy. It is also important to remember that self-doubt does not mean stop. So often, we wait for confidence before we act. We think that once we feel ready, then we will take the leap. But confidence is not the absence of doubt. It is the willingness to move forward in spite of it. Every person you admire, every leader, every artist, every innovator, each of them has faced self-doubt. The difference is they didn't let it stop them. They kept going, kept trying, kept showing up, even when the voice inside their head told them they weren't enough. And because of that, they grew. Breaking free from the inner critic is not about silencing self-doubt forever. It's about learning to hear it without obeying it. It's about recognizing when fear is disguising itself as truth and choosing again and again to believe in ourselves instead. It's about being patient in the process, knowing that rewiring our thoughts takes time. The more we practice self-compassion, the weaker the inner critic becomes. The more we challenge our doubts, the more confidence we build. So today, I invite you to listen closely to the stories you tell yourself. When the inner critic speaks, pause, question it. Replace it with words of kindness, of truth, of possibility. You are not your mistakes. You are not your fears. You are not the voice that says you aren't enough. You are capable. You are growing. You are worthy. And the moment you start believing that, everything changes. So often we are our own worst critics. We hold ourselves to impossible standards, replay our mistakes over and over, and speak to ourselves in ways we would never speak to a friend. When we fall short, instead of offering ourselves understanding, we respond with judgment. When we struggle, instead of kindness, we offer criticism. And when we experience failure, instead of encouragement, we give ourselves shame. But what if there was another way? What if instead of harshness, we responded with grace? What if instead of self-judgment, we practiced self-compassion? Self-compassion is a simple but powerful practice of treating ourselves with the same kindness and understanding that we would offer to someone we love. It is about embracing imperfection, recognizing that being human means making mistakes, and choosing to be gentle with ourselves instead of ruthless. It is not about ignoring our flaws or excusing our mistakes. Rather, it is about acknowledging them without letting them define us. Self-compassion allows us to see ourselves fully, our strengths and our struggles, without shame or self-rejection. At its core, self-compassion has three key elements: self-careness, common humanity, and mindfulness. Self-careness is the practice of speaking to ourselves with warmth rather than harshness. It is reminding ourselves that failure does not make us unworthy, that struggling does not mean we are failing. Common humanity reminds us that we are not alone in our imperfections. Every person we admire has experienced self-doubt, setbacks, and mistakes. When we recognize this, we stop seeing our struggles as proof that we are not enough and start seeing them as part of the shared human experience. Mindfulness is learning to observe our emotions and thoughts without being consumed by them. It allows us to notice when we are being self-critical and to choose a different response, one rooted in understanding rather than shame. But self-compassion is not just a nice idea, it is a practice, and like any practice, it takes time. Many of us have spent years being hard on ourselves, believing that criticism will make us better, that self-judgment will push us forward. We tell ourselves, if I don't hold myself to the highest standard, I'll never succeed. But research shows that the opposite is true. Self-compassion doesn't make us weaker. It makes us stronger. It gives us resilience. It allows us to move forward rather than getting stuck in shame. It helps us bounce back from failure rather than letting it define us. Imagine if you could go through life knowing that no matter what happened, no matter what mistakes you made, no matter what challenges you faced, you would always have your own support. Imagine waking up each day not feeling the weight of perfectionism, but instead feeling a deep, unwavering sense of worthiness. That is the power of self-compassion. When we stop fighting ourselves, when we stop demanding perfection, we create space for growth. We allow ourselves to learn, to heal, to show up fully without fear of judgment. One of the biggest myths about self-compassion is that it is a form of weakness or self-indulgence. People fear that if they go easy on themselves, they will stop trying, stop growing. But the truth is, self-compassion is not about lowering our standards. It is about changing the way we motivate ourselves. Instead of using fear and shame to push us forward, we use encouragement. Instead of saying, you better not fail or you'll never be good enough, we say, you are learning, you are growing, and no matter what, you are still worthy. That kind of motivation doesn't lead to complacency. It leads to confidence, courage, and lasting change. When we embrace self-compassion, we also transform the way we interact with others. The more kindness we show ourselves, the more kindness we can offer the world. When we stop being so critical of ourselves, we stop being so critical of others. We begin to see people not just for their actions, but for their hearts, the same way we learn to see ourselves. And when we give ourselves permission to be imperfect, we unconsciously give others permission to do the same. This creates a world with less judgment and more love, less fear and more connection. So today, let this be an invitation. Treat yourself with kindness. When you make a mistake, don't punish yourself, encourage yourself. When you feel like you're not enough, remind yourself that you are already enough. Start paying attention to the way you speak to yourself. Would you say those words to a friend? If not, change them. Your worth is not based on perfection. You are not only valuable when you succeed, when you get it right, when you meet every expectation. You are worthy simply because you are you, and when you truly believe that, everything changes. Every single one of us is living by a script, an internal narrative about who we are, what we are capable of, and what we deserve. Some of us have been carrying the same script for years, one that tells us we're not smart enough, not talented enough, not worthy enough. Others have a script that keeps them playing small, afraid to take risks, afraid to dream too big. And yet what we often forget is that this script was never set in stone. It was written over time by experiences, by voices from our past, by societal expectations. But here's the most powerful truth. We have the ability to rewrite it. Think about it. If the way you see yourself is shaped by the stories you tell yourself, then changing the story can change everything. But too often we believe the old script is reality. We mistake past failures for proof of our limitations. We assume that because we have always been a certain way, we always will be. But our identity is not fixed. We are not bound to the labels, fears, or insecurities we once believed. The moment we decide to shift our perspective, to tell ourselves a new and empowered story, we step into a whole new version of ourselves, one that is no longer defined by past limitations, but by future possibilities. One of the biggest reasons we stay stuck in old scripts is fear. There is a strange comfort in familiarity, even when it limits us. If we've always believed we're not good enough, then stepping into confidence feels unfamiliar, even risky. If we've always told ourselves we don't deserve success, then accepting opportunities can feel uncomfortable. But growth is uncomfortable. It requires stepping outside of what is known, challenging old beliefs, and rewriting the way we see ourselves. The question is, are you willing to step into a new story even when it feels uncertain? Rewriting the script starts with awareness. Pay attention to the thoughts that run through your mind on a daily basis. Are they building you up or tearing you down? Are they pushing you forward or keeping you small? When you catch yourself thinking, I can't do this, or I'm not good enough, pause and ask, who told me that? Where did this belief come from? And most importantly, is it true? Because often the scripts we live by are not based on truth, but on outdated fears and false assumptions. When we start to question them, we begin to break free from their grip. Once we recognize the old script, we can begin rewriting it with intention. Instead of saying, I'm not capable, choose to say, I am learning, I am growing, I am more capable than I give myself credit for. Instead of believing I always mess things up, choose to believe I am doing my best and my best is enough. Words have power, and the more we speak new, empowering words over our lives, the more they take root in our reality. At first, this may feel unnatural, even forced, but just like any habit, the more we practice it, the more it becomes second nature. Another key part of rewriting the script is taking action. A new perspective only becomes real when we begin to live it out. If you've always believed you're not brave, do something that scares you. If you've always seen yourself as someone who never follows through, prove yourself wrong by taking one small step forward. Confidence is not something we wait for, it is something we build through action. With every step outside of our comfort zone, we reinforce the new script. I am capable, I am worthy, I am stronger than I thought. One of the most important things to remember in this process is that rewriting your story is not about erasing your past, it's about reframing it. Every struggle, every failure, every difficult season has shaped you, but they do not define you. Instead of seeing them as proof of your limitations, begin to see them as evidence of your resilience. Instead of saying, I failed, say, I learned, I grew, I got back up. Your past is not your prison, it is your proof of strength. And when you start seeing it that way, you step into a whole new level of freedom. So today, I invite you to take back the pen. Your story is still being written, and you have the power to shape it. You are not the labels you've been given. You are not the mistakes you've made. You are not the doubts you once believed. You are strong, capable, and worthy of stepping into a new, empowered version of yourself. The question is, what kind of story will you choose to tell from this moment forward? So many of us spend our lives waiting for permission to feel worthy. We think once I accomplish more, then I'll be enough. Once I lose the weight, get the promotion, prove myself, then I can finally feel like I matter. But here's the truth. Worthiness is not something we earn. It is something we already have. From the moment we take our first breath, we are worthy. We do not have to hustle for it, prove it, or wait for someone else to give it to us. The real work is not about becoming worthy. It's about believing that we already are. But believing in our worthiness is not always easy. Most of us have spent years internalizing messages that tell us we need to be more successful, more attractive, more productive to deserve love and belonging. We compare ourselves to others, measuring our worth against highlight reels and impossible standards. And when we fall short, which we always will because perfection is a myth, we convince ourselves that we are not enough. This belief keeps us small, afraid to take risks, afraid to show up fully as ourselves. But what if we stopped measuring our worth by external validation and started claiming it from within? To live from worthiness is to shift the way we see ourselves. Instead of asking, am I good enough? We begin asking, how can I show up as my full, authentic self? Instead of waiting for confidence to magically appear, we step forward even when we feel uncertain. Worthiness is not about perfection. It's about presence. It's about saying, I am enough right now as I am. And when we truly embrace this, everything changes. We stop hiding. We stop shrinking ourselves. We stop letting fear hold us back. Because when we believe in our worth, we give ourselves permission to take up space in the world. One of the biggest obstacles to living from worthiness is fear. Fear of rejection, fear of failure, fear of not being accepted. But here's something powerful to remember. People can only reject the version of you that you present to them. If you are constantly molding yourself to fit expectations, hiding parts of who you are to gain approval, then any validation you receive is not for the real you, it's for the mask you're wearing. But when you show up as your true, authentic self, you give people the opportunity to love you for who you really are. And yes, some people may not accept you, some may not understand you, but that's okay because the right people, the ones who truly see you, will embrace you wholeheartedly. Confidence is not about never feeling insecure. It's about choosing to show up despite the insecurity. So often we think confidence comes first, that once we feel sure of ourselves, then we'll finally step into our full potential. But confidence is not a prerequisite. It's a byproduct of action. The more we practice showing up, the more we begin to believe in ourselves. The more we take risks, the more we prove to ourselves that we are capable. Living from worthiness is a choice we make daily. We choose to believe in ourselves, even when doubt whispers otherwise. We choose to take up space, even when fear tells us to shrink. We choose to honor our truth, even when the world tells us to be someone else. Another key part of living from worthiness is embracing imperfection. We will never be flawless, and that's a good thing. Our humanity, our struggles, our growth, our realness is what makes us beautiful. When we release the pressure to be perfect, we give ourselves the freedom to be fully alive. Instead of fearing mistakes, we see them as part of the journey. Instead of waiting until we have it all figured out, we allow ourselves to be a work in progress. You do not have to be perfect to be worthy. You just have to be you. And when we live from worthiness, we inspire others to do the same. When we own our stories, when we walk in confidence, when we refuse to apologize for who we are, we give others permission to do the same. Our authenticity creates space for others to be real. Our courage helps others step into their own. Imagine a world where we all showed up fully, without shame, without fear, where we all knew deep in our bones that we were already enough. That kind of world begins with us. So today, I invite you to stop waiting. Stop waiting to feel ready. Stop waiting for external validation. Stop waiting for perfection. You are already enough. You always have been. The only thing left to do is believe it and live like it. Show up, take up space, and let the world see the real you. Because the real you is exactly who you were meant to be.